It is my pleasure to introduce Alain Moreau from Canada, Montreal. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So here my disclosure. I will go relatively fast. 1, 2, 3, boom. I will start to acknowledge first of all, the participants, because we are asking a lot, and I will show you why. So without the patient as a participant, but also without the patient partners who are helping us to develop and design this protocol, we wouldn't be here today. So very important to acknowledge, as well as my team member and collaborator. So you heard this morning the word signal, and often signals plural. I don't think there's one single session talking about signals. So why signals in the flow, or the flow of signals, is important? Why this question matter for the person living with ME/CFS? In fact, the signals is even in the sport. So you see this German iconic person that is looking about the signals in the football game. And if you recognize the signal correctly, that's maybe a game changer. This is applied to ME/CFS big time. So why we want to understand the signal is because we want to understand the disease. We want to identify biomarkers and to better stratify patients, to guide precision medicine, to intervene and improve care. Simple like that. We'll see, or let's see, like Mr. Beckenbauer is mentioning to us. So here's to uncover the signal in the flow. We develop a deep phenotyping protocol, which is, I think, quite unique in many ways, and we develop a very comprehensive approach. So I won't spend the next 35 minutes to explain to you the details, but I can just summarize in 1 minute that we are using different digital technologies combined with omic approaches. So first of all, we use the Exoskin Smart Vest that allowed us to measure in real-world setting different physiological monitoring, as well as we are measuring cerebral and peripheral oxygenation. I think we are the only team in the world measuring brain oximetry during a stress test inducing PEM. Is non-invasive using near-infrared spectroscopy, and also we are measuring cognitive assessment at baseline immediately after the stress test, which is about 90 minutes, and 5 days later to see to what extent the participants recovered or present prolonged PEM symptom. We use also a very innovative test using an inflatable cuff to technically give a massage to the participant, but for people suffering of ME, this is really inducing PEM. They are in semi-supine position in their own bed. Most of the time we are testing them at home. We are sending our clinical research nurses there because they are too sick to participate to standard clinical studies, which allowed us to test a severely affected individual, which is a game changer too. If you want to find a signal, you look about where people are the sicker and to extract the information from them. That's the only way. There is no special recipe. It's not magic. It's just time and money consuming. And we are measuring different biological sample, blood, first morning urine, saliva, and of course we are combining with different omic technology to measure the change, and to understand the change you need to establish what is existing at baseline. So we demonstrate using our brain check cognitive testing, which is a very short test, about 10 minutes on a tablet, that we identify 3 cognitive trajectories that reveal distinct biological signals. So such a cognitive vulnerability, and you can see in the A, this is a principal component analysis where we can separate ME patients based on their cognitive performance, especially after the stress test. So we generate 3 clusters, A, B, and C. The C is the one that is the worstly affected. You see the 6 domains that are affected. The A is the memory dominant decline, as you can see here. And the cluster B, they are quite resilient. In fact, if you look at the 3 group of patients at baseline, they are all similar. we need to induce a provocation to induce PEM to reveal what is hidden. Interestingly enough, also, if you look about the most severely affected, when we measure the cerebral oxygen extraction, that's the one that is also defective. So it's decreased, and there's a compensatory mechanism in the group A, while B is quite stable. Of course, what can we learn from this cluster of the different cognitive group? You can see on panel A, B, C, and D, those are extract from the DPMQ. We see, of course, the severity looking at the total score in panel A. B, you see problem of thinking, no surprise, the C is more affected, but also muscle weaknesses and muscle pain that is also much higher, more prevalent in the C group. The panel A is a qualitative assessment using the narrative of the participant. So our clinical nurses extract all this information. So simply put, we ask the participant to tell us in their own words what they are suffering, okay? And you see the detail. D1, D2 are baseline, so we record over 2 days to establish the baseline. D3 is when the nurse is coming home to induce a stress. And D4 to D8 are the measurement of how the PEM is deployed for the patient. No surprise, you see that more orange and deeper color in the cluster C because this is more symptom, because they are more affected. We, of course, last year published a first paper about the role of acute phase protein called haptoglobin. So HP stands for haptoglobin, which play a role in the vasculature, amongst others, and part of the vascular stress response, and play also a role in shaping the cognitive outcome. So what is complicated is there are 2 alleles of haptoglobin, 1 and 2, and of course you can be 1-1, which is a good thing because that's the most performing haptoglobin able to detoxify. And 2-2 and 2-1 are less effective. In the context of ME, and these are published results, we realize that individual patients having 1-1 are more resilient, have less severe symptoms overall, and better cognitive performance. 2-2 is not good, okay, in general, but in the context of ME, it's 2-1 that leads to more vulnerability. Because, to summarize this paper, 2-1, the plan B, what I call, is the second level of detoxification of hemoglobin involving another molecule called hemopexin, needs LRP1 as a membrane-bound receptor to be efficient. And in the case of 2-1, there's only the soluble form of LRP1, at least more of that soluble form that is preventing the plan B to be effective. So that's why in ME, exceptionally, in that particular context, the 2-1 present the most severely effect. If we translate this to what I just told you about the cluster, of course, you don't see any 1-1, haptoglobin 1-1 phenotype in cluster C, no surprise, that are not helping them. There are more in cluster B, which is more resilient, makes sense. And also, you see that the 2-1 is hardly present in A and C, although there are more soluble LRP1 in the cluster C that explain that the plan B is defective. So that's why the overall, the cluster C, individual classified in cluster C are more affected. So this is just what I explained to you, so you can see that in the plan B, in the cluster C, where they are harboring a majority of case of phenotype 2-1, there are more soluble LRP1 that prevent the hemopexin to interact at the membrane to detoxify, while the 2-2 here seems to be efficient because the LRP1 is at the right place at the right time and contribute to compensate for the lack of efficacy of 2-2 phenotype to detoxify. And of course, the 1-1 is the best, so it's working perfectly and explain the best performance and the resilient. And this is what you will see here, is that it is a test using the soluble LRP1. But there are some hope. So, and before I talk about hope, I should warn you, this is my caution sign. This has never been tested in clinical trial yet, although some of you and now I'm talking to the patient, I'm well aware that you are trying everything. So be aware that this is not approved, okay? So there are some version of purified recombinant heptoglobin that is given for some blood disorder. Those are still in clinical development. So, but if you think on the long run that millions of individuals are affected with ME, that cannot be a practical solution. Maybe for the very extreme severe case, that should be maybe a consideration for those having the Hp2-1 or 2-2. But there are also pentoxifilin that is available, and that improves red blood cell deformity. So again, if you have an incapacity to detoxify due to hemolysis, let's prevent hemolysis by making sure that your red blood cells are in top shape. So that's the principle that we want to put forward. Same with mitapivat, which has been recently approved by the FDA. So again, you activate the metabolism of your red blood cells, and the red blood cells produce less hemolysis, so that could be a solution. And of course, you have all the antioxidant and supplement. Beside the haptoglobin, we recently discovered another molecule called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. It's not a novel molecule. In fact, it's a quite controversial molecule because a lot of studies didn't see anything. And in fact, we saw anything if you look at ME altogether, especially at baseline, or even just simply after the stress test. But we start to see the signals in the flow when we use our cluster, the cognitive cluster. So this is exactly what you are seeing. Cluster C, after the stress test, we saw a dramatic and sudden drop in circulating BDNF, which is a protecting factor. A protecting factor for neuronal survival, synaptic plasticity, neurotransmission, stress adaptation, but also in terms of energy metabolism and immunoregulation. In fact, BDNF sits at the crossroad of neural, immune, and metabolic dysfunction, making it a compelling biomarker for therapeutic target. We don't know exactly why in that group of ME patient, cluster C, there's a reuptake of BDNF. If we understand that, we might have a more definitive solution for that group that prevents. So even if you give them recombinant mimic of BDNF, they are most likely to be reabsorbed by the platelet. So the problem is appearing at the level of the platelet. So in summary, we challenge the system using our deep phenotyping to reveal distinct biological trajectories and signals. I show you an example of what we are doing by presenting 3 cognitive trajectories, which are very important because brain fog is a debilitating condition for ME. But I show you some hope of solution by looking at different signals like haptoglobin phenotype, LRP1, as well as BDNF, and some emerging therapeutics. So I think that MCSF is not just a disorder of symptom, it's a disorder how the system responds to stress. And I think that we can go beyond just to see, and now we can measure and test some new treatment. So thank you for your time.